Yes. Welcome everyone in this evening session. This is our last session of the New Horizon stage, and I'm really glad that you are already here watching with us. We are glad to announce you our final speaker of tonight, Richard Lamp, trend watcher, forecaster, and the founder of Trend Watcher TV. He will be helping you today on becoming a trend watcher and becoming a forecaster. And I would like to have a big round of applause for Richard. So if you're backstage, if you're at home, give him an applause. And there you go.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. It's really great. And I'm respecting all the hours that you invested in the campus party with all the others, of course, because I know there's tons of speakers and staff members who make the campus party running. It's really amazing what you're all doing. And hey, for us, it's just simple. We come in and sort of prepared bed and give our talk and do some interaction with you. If you're viewing, by the way, at home or maybe somewhere else, stay tuned. We're about half an hour talking about the future, more precise, how to predict the future. I think since, let's say 1989, I'm working with future perspectives and how it would work. So I sort of invented a method years and years ago, made books about it, but today it's even more easy for you. And I'm going to talk you through how to predict the future. So before I'll start with that, I'll tell you about the background. And the way of predicting the future is quite tough, because people always ask for you, of course, the final result of a football match and stuff like that. Well, that's not what we're predicting as a forecaster, of course, but we look more to developments in the environment, in society, in technology, economical, political, and stuff like that, and then make a combination and make a future perspective. And in the end, after, let's say half an hour, you can do about the same. So be aware. And there are a few people who sort of inspired me in all the time that I worked in this area. You might know Alvin Toffler with his wife Heidi. Heidi and Alvin, they were sort of the first futurologist couple, and they wrote also a lot of books. Most famous one is Future Shock, back in 1970. They wrote it, and then there were tons of other publications. For instance, The Third Wave in 1980. And if you want to get started with forecasting and watching into the future and handling futuristic trends, start by reading material from Alvin Toffler. It's amazing, and still now, it was written back in 1970, but now in the 2000s, it's still valid. Well, he said the future always arrives too fast and in the wrong order, and that's exactly the problem. So, good luck with that. Here's Thijs Chernovsky. Foreign viewers won't know him. He's a Dutch guy, and he has a background in IT, so technology, ICT, IT. But he also invented years and years ago a puppet show on the Dutch television, and he was one of the guys who, sort of proved that creativity is needed for IT, for programming, developing software and stuff like that. Could also be used by, for instance, creating TV shows. And he did that. He was quite famous with that. He was the producer in the end of the entire show. But he also developed the Aqua browser. And the Aqua browser, that was, I think, somewhere around the 90s that he sort of invented it. And it was, in fact, a sort of search engine based on artificial intelligence before we knew that it would become this important, this artificial intelligence. And the Aqua browser was interesting because the information in a database could sort of signal itself. Right? You're not searching by a keyword, for instance, but you were looking like, hey, there's something going on, but I don't know what's changing with the weather or the climate or what's going on. And then the Aqua browser starts searching and made some relations in the information, and the information is validated in different ways, and then there comes sort of half an answer, and then you can work further with that answer. Check the Aqua browser. The principles are really interesting and still valid. And this is Mark Cornelissen, one of my good friends. and not anymore, as you can see on the dates and the years. He was a Arctic explorer mainly on the North Pole, and he went often to that area, of course. He's also a scientist, so he did research on, say, sustainability, temperatures, and stuff like that. And he was one of the first who predicted that, hey, when the ice is melting, the color will change, and therefore the melting will speed up. And that's exactly what's happening at this moment. And there was, well, I think 30 years ago that he predicted something like that. So that was quite amazing that what he did. Bart Cornelissen. And this one, well, this is Greet Titulaar, astronomer, not an astronaut, but an astronomer, TV presenter, and writing about science and technology. And he was one of the first that I know who brought gadgets and technology, mainly from Japan, in the 70s and the 80s. And here in this picture, you see that he had the very first mobile phone, and there was, of course, a car phone, and he mounted this phone on his bike. And then for Fool's Day, he said, "Hey, okay, guys, if you want to have something like this, write me a letter," because email didn't exist back in the 70s, "and you can get a bike with this phone." So it was a major joke, of course, but everyone believed him because, hey, he was the guy from the new technology. So if he presents it, it could be possible. You never know. That's Greet Titulaar. Also a name I think you should look up and see what he has been published. It's tons that he published. This is Wubbo Ockels, and well, he has also passed away. In, I think, 2013, I was presenting a radio show on the Dutch National Radio, and we had him for one of the latest interviews. He was in the hospital already, and he still wanted to come on the radio because we said to him, "Hey, would you give this interview since you're serious ill and there have been a lot of operations and stuff like that?" He said, "No, I want to tell about time. I want to tell people about the experience of time and movement." And if you look up for TEDx, and you look for TEDx Wubbo Ockels, he has an amazing talk. Still, within 80 minutes, he can explain how we do experience difference in time because of the movements of the Earth. It's really interesting, and I think even fascinating what he explains there. So it's TEDx, and then look for Wubbo Ockels. Well, there's 5 of them, and maybe you've seen they've been all passed away. It's too bad. Brilliant minds, but I think especially these people are still with us and can share their ideas even at this moment. Now, predicting the future was not easy for me, of course, because I didn't learn it at my education how to do the future predicting, because no one knew, and even stronger people said, well, you cannot predict the future. It's absolutely impossible. And in fact, I must agree in the beginning, but then you can sort of make a exploded view of the current situation of a society, of technology development, or something else, and then you can bring that back into the future. Let me tell you, I got 4 tools to explain it. And then after that, well, you could do it maybe if you pay attention, and I'll give you an address as well where you could look up some more material. Well, first of all, there is what I call the future funnel. And the future funnel is interesting because a funnel goes from broad to small, of course. But when you predict something for the future, the far future, it's quite easy. If you predict somehow there might be a development for a virus or a bacteria or whatever. Yeah, well, okay, you can explain that. Or is that in graying society? It must be right, but you don't know when it is. So is it worthless? Well, that's the case. For predicting for over a long period, for 10, 20 years, is easy. And then you bring it back to the next 5 years, next 3 years, and you look back what could happen these years that sort of influence the future in this particular funnel. If you take a look for graying society at this moment, the Western European countries are graying. Already in Japan, for instance, the graying society is, well, quite normal in the meantime. And if you know so that the society is already graying, you can look around and see what will it mean for the next generation. How quick will it go? How will the demography of people go, and so on. So that's how you work with a future funnel. First predict for the farther future, and then take it back to a closer future. And most people work the other way around, but this is the safest way. And what you, for instance, see when people are investing in buildings and stuff like that, or a government takes a decision. They take decisions for a building, for instance, which is for 20, 30 or more years away. So, you can see by their decisions for what kind of buildings, what kind of cities they're developing, what kind of infrastructure, what they do expect for the people that will live there, work-life balance, stuff like that. And these are all these little signals that combine the future image in this funnel. So number one is the future funnel. And then there's two laws of LAMP. The first one is this one. And well, think to yourself if you could be agree with it. I say concepts remain the same. So in all the ages, some things don't change on conceptual level. On the other hand, the appearance of a concept does change. For instance, the ancient markets outside were there, as you see here on the images on the left side. Well, there's a regular sort of shop. On the right side, you see a projected shop, which is, well, in fact, the first step to cyber shopping or doing online shopping. And what you see on the right hand is a subway station where you can sort of use QR codes and select your products, which was quite hot in the 80s and in the 90s. But in the meantime, well, we know better. It's even more easy if you take your cell phone and you make an order online. So I hope you understand that the concept of shopping in the meaning is still the same. But the appearance, but it can be also the appearance and the concept of a chair or whatever, reading or getting information to yourself. So the main thing is for you as a new colleague, future caster, is that you sort of try to develop the feeling from what could be the next appearance of a certain concept. So at this moment, we do have, if we stick to shopping, we do have online shopping, we have regular shopping still in the streets. But what would be the next step after online shopping, next to online shopping? Well, there could be something like buy on the fly. It's already developing at this very moment. You get your cam and you cam from your phone and you take a photo or a movie, short movie from a product at a friend where you are, and you say, hey, well, a nice couch. I want to have a couch like that, but a different color. Can I get it? And please do tell me, where can I find those? What's the pricing? And well, maybe I can immediately order. So buy on the fly could be one of the new appearances of the concept shopping. Just as an example, it could be all different items and topics. The second law is like think in structures and interests, because the future is, well, in fact, almost produced, made or the ideas from people. So if you for instance take a look to make it small to TV commercials. In TV commercials, most of the time, a sort of ideal world is published in the spot, and a lot of extras. How will it be in the years to come, and how perfect will this world be? And then what you see there is that they sort of try to steer the viewers, the eyeballs, to a certain direction. So apparently the future is in the mind of a couple of people, maybe in your mind as well, but the people who are sort of in charge and who have large structures, for instance, someone who's leading a union is in place to steer into the future. So structures and interests is making the future building. So that's the the thing that you can look for, what kind of people are working together, making a certain future. Why would they do that? What would be their interest, and what's the structure behind it? What kind of people do belong, for instance, to influencers or to politicians or technicians, and people with a, for instance, people who buy a Tesla car. Most of the time, they like what Elon Musk does do, or people who are buying Apple stuff, like what Steve Jobs is doing and Steve Wozniak. So there's a sort of group structure, and you can steer on this structure. For instance, the Apple and Tesla lovers, they give high value for design, but also for extreme quality and state-of-the-art technology and stuff like that. So therefore, you can imagine that people who are buying first a phone will also buy a car like the Tesla car, for instance. So this is the way you can sort of predict that the Tesla car, for instance, but it could be also other developments could be picked up by a group like that. So think in structures and in interests. And then there is this number 4, the to-do method, which is, well, it looks complex, but it isn't. Let me tell you. There's 2 levels. The upper level is inspiration level, and the lower one is the creation level. Well, at inspiration, you don't do anything. You just think and imagine what could happen, or you see what is happening already. Because trends are most of the time not just starting in the future, but they're already running, and you are the one, hopefully, already recognizing a new trend or a new development, while the world around you still doesn't have a clue what's going to happen. And you have to look very sharp. Okay, let's go for the inspiration level. On the left corner, there's trends. Therefore, the model is called to-do. Trends. A trend is a change for long-term. And that's interesting because a trend for long-term can be a fundament for an innovation or for an investment and things like that. So first of all, you're gonna gather all large and smaller trends into a sort of nest, where you say, hey, there's engrainment, but there's also a lack of education or whatever could happen in a part of the society. And therefore you combine them. You don't know exactly which way you're gonna handle or what it will mean for you. But first of all, you're gonna see what kind of current situation are we living and what will be the future. So the trends, which started a couple of years ago, are still here and will be in the future, and in what way. You simply describe them. There's a large publication, I'll point to that in the end of my talk, how you can fill out this way of working. Then you got a set of trends. Well, okay, that's one. That's inspiration. It's nice, but we can't start with that. So we have to look for opportunities. In fact, chances. What could be opportunities because of these trends? And for instance, we got an ingraining society. We got lack of education, for instance. Is there a combination possible that we could, for instance, ask elderly to help with educating younger generation or whatever, or maybe the other way around? You don't know at this moment. But the most important is that these trends should not be translated into an innovation one-on-one, but first bring this trend to the opportunities. And so these opportunities, and this is the difficult phase, the opportunities could be vague. And like, we could do something with the elderly in the education area, but we don't know what yet. It's enough for that moment. So, and then after the trends and the opportunities, it can be a long list of different opportunities. Then you go on to the next step, and then you go one level down from inspiration to creation. And in fact, I wrote down deliverables, which could be translated into innovation, process innovation, product innovation, service innovation. But process innovation is the most important of all, of course, because when you innovate a process, well, sort of automatically new services and products will come out of this new process, this innovative process. And what you usually see in the industry is that people are panicking, people from companies, and say, oh, we've got to need new products. Or for instance, the banking said, okay, we need new financial products. Give me some. It doesn't work like that, because if you make new products and new services and not innovating your process, you got a strange organization, because it will be very expensive and complex to facilitate these new products and new services. So you have to dare to translate the opportunities to the deliverables on process level. And then when you make a process level, for instance, you're banking and you say, okay, what is happening here? We already were used to work with interest and make money out of interest. And at this very moment, the interest is not interesting as a business model. What could we do? Well, we got to look for opportunities. Do we have to look for different values, not financial values, but more like social values? Things like that. That could happen in this phase of innovation process. Innovation. Well, that's the creation. That's where the creation starts. And then, of course, you start on the outside. You look to the world on what is happening actually based on the trends and the opportunities that you already noticed. And then you bring them to deliverables, but deliverables based on the outside world, not on the inside, not on the production side of your operation. We got to look where's the request in the market, for instance, and how can you bring these developments in and outside requests together. And the last step is quite easy, in fact. That's making objectives, like prioritizing what you want to develop as an innovation process, new products, new process, and that's really working. The last one. It's really not just thinking all the time, but just go on and really go for it. So that's, in fact, the to-do business brainstorm model, trends, opportunities, deliverables, and objectives. And now you've got all these packages together. First of all, we had the future funnel. Then we had the first law. It's like concepts stay sort of the same over ages, but appearances do change. Get the best out of that. The third one, that was, in fact, the second law. Think in structures and interests and try to understand the world. As soon as you understand the world and what people are really up to when they ask you something or when they try to force you in a certain direction, then you start understanding how the future is created today already. And the last one is what you just saw, the to-do model with the trends, opportunities, deliverables, and objectives. Well, that's the first step of forecasting, as we call it sometimes, trend watching. It's quite passive. So the next step is, of course, you want to do something with it. You want to design the future, your own future. It could be your personal future or your corporate future or a governmental future. We do all these kind of different things for corporates and governments and even for tiny corporations, because if they do understand what they're doing in this world and where their added value is, and they can have the best opportunities out of the environment of their government, out of their corporation or the environment of a tiny company, an SME, for instance. So go out there and try to design your future. And what I said before is all because you want to design your future. You want to control the future, your personal future, work future, whatever. So here's an idea. Just an idea. Just on my at school, well, I think almost everyone had some sort of history class. It's nice. It's interesting. But what should we think about starting with future classes in the educational system? Like learn the kids how to look into the future and dare them or challenge them to make future perspectives. I didn't see it. Well, in fact, there were two places where I saw it, but it was exceptional. So here's my idea, and that's my idea for spreading around if you want to. Future classes next to history classes, because they're also interesting as well, of course. Okay, well, now you should sort of know how to predict the future. If you want to know more, you can check this address in the corner, richardlam.us. There's another video where it's explained in more depth. And if you want to know more, you can always find me on LinkedIn or wherever in this easy, accessible cyber universe at this moment. So this is my idea for Campus Party. I hope you're still watching, and hope to see you in the future. If there's a important question, you can always email me or send a message over social media or whatever you like. And I see that Nick is still awake, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. So
Yeah.
Nick, thank you for all the millennials and all the people at the Rijksinnovatie community that I invited. Maybe we can give them some tips, like if you are in your student time, what do you do already, like next to your study? Well, there is no forecasting yet. There are some trend studies right now, but the students that pass these schools said, well, there is no job such as trend watching in a company yet. So I studied a field of study where there is no job available. So how can they take these forecasting skills and
Yeah. Well, as a starter, and in a lot of studies, there's sort of minor program where you can start something like entrepreneurship or stuff like that. But also wander around for instance, what industrial designers do. The job of an industrial designer is quite close what a trend strategist or forecaster does do, is actually focusing on the process and recognizing what is actually happening with a product and bring the product back to its original process, and then bring back a new appearance of such product. If you look to organizations, back then when I started in '89, there was of course also nothing like trend watching or forecasting or whatever officially, and still there is just some trend watching for fashion and stuff like that, but it's not actually what's really the key. So you can take a huge advantage by making these skills for yourself. But next to that is explaining to the companies, the organizations, that they really need it. And most of the time they do have a business development manager, for instance, or an R&D manager or whatever, something in that direction. That's okay. But it's mainly focused on really developing these products and services, what I just sketched. And if you look to larger companies at this time, I think since, well, like 5 years or something, there are forecasters in the corporates. For instance, in BT, for instance, British Telecom, I know I have some good friends there who are forecasting for the future. And the interesting thing of their job is
full-time job.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's of course. The time flies, so I have to say, see you in the future. But thanks for all.
No, is it that it's their full-time job to be a forecaster, Richard?
Yeah, I think not for everyone, of course. And there are people who do the forecasting next to as their decision maker, for instance. But they can also be a partial forecaster. But well, for me, it is forecaster. I don't know why. I think in a small country like the Netherlands, there are, I think, sort of 20 serious forecasters really doing the job, and not just talking about it, but really forecasting. And it's an interesting job because it's quite. If you say something to decision makers, they always got the idea of, okay, the first idea that you mentioned, we're going to do that. Yeah. But that's not the start, of course. That's just giving more and more opportunities. That's the thing, and you have to learn how sort of present the future perspectives that everyone understands. And hey, this doesn't look like interesting for me or for my company, but in the way you tell, I do understand that within 3 years it could be very interesting to change my business, for instance. And at this moment in the Corona crisis, you see many companies who are searching and think to themselves, hey, this should be the time. And I got to do something what I should have done 5 or 10 years ago, actually, to make my business model more profitable.
So what is your, if you can define your job and a daily life, what is it going? What does it look like? What does it look like? I'm really curious.
Well, part of it is very boring. It's more like a scientist doing research, very broad. You got forecasters who are specialized in travel trends and things like that, but we are more generic. So we have to keep up to date with all developments. And it starts for me with development of new chips, integrated circuits, to sort of estimate when new software or new services will be in place in the market because of these chips. These are at this moment developed. For instance, a couple of years ago, you saw the GPUs, the graphical processing units, which are tremendously used for calculating bitcoins and other currencies. But actually, a GPU wasn't designed for that in the beginning. So therefore, you can imagine that within a very short time, new dedicated chips came into the market to have a heavier calculation speed for typical things like that, like mining.
Yeah. And here's a question from Hans Luck. Doesn't AI trend watcher exist?
Yeah. Yeah, of course, and I think it's interesting. It's a very good one. I'm not threatened at all at this moment because I've seen them. For instance, very simple. Google and even Facebook are having some experiments, but it's still so dedicated for. Well, in fact, they almost give a direction of. Predicting based on, for instance, the data which is fed into the Google system by all the users, which is more like trend analysis than really predicting. But the next step is absolutely, and the interesting is with AI, that the tremendous speed which can be arranged, and well, we as humans, as forecasters, and we're sort of limited, of course, by making all these different models. So we make drawings as well with all these trend lines and future perspectives. But an AI system can, of course, work so fast, and within a couple of seconds, got more than 15,000 different areas, and like playing chess. And that's where it becomes interesting, of course.
So do you already work together with an AI, Richard?
Yeah. It's top secret. No, serious. Because AI is, of course, first in defense area available, and these kind of services, because they want to keep ahead, keep a lot of stuff for themselves. But it's really developing fast, and I'm sort of I'm intrigued by AI, but I'm on the other hand sort of scared as well, because real AI. Almost everything is called AI these days. It's really crazy. Normal software is by now called AI powered because of it's selling better. But real AI, it's really getting awareness of its environment, for instance, and can make fast decisions and independent, autonomous decisions. And then it becomes sort of scary, even. Less
even for your job, even for I'm a trend watcher myself as well. If they can predict everything faster than we can, and we are having full Dropbox folders full of trends that we have to do something with, right? We have so much information, and we need like a month of time to analyze it and to put it into at presentations. Like everything turns into presentations and visualizations.
Yeah. And you see more and more people are sort of overwhelmed. I do have an information overflow of processing everything, and even in the worst case, getting a burnout, and learn how to handle with it. So you will see you've got these decision support systems, which most of the time is a sort of tiny AI system, but the decision support is working together with humans and making decisions, but do the calculation with all the amounts of data, also like pattern recognition and big data handling and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it starts like you have these.
Yeah, it starts like that, and then it becomes more and more important. And at the end of the day, you and I can just sit on the beach or whatever and it's all arranged for us.
Yeah, I think now AI is mostly used for consumer behavior analysis, and then giving like prescriptions or giving marketeers tools to better target their audience and make
Yeah.
them do stuff.
And the one sort of warning, because a lot of people are sort of afraid of AI, and for themselves they say, okay, but AI is okay, they can calculate fast, but they will never be, for instance, very good in doing a discussion or a psychologist or stuff like that, or being really creative. It's just a matter of time. It's really gradual, all these things. And it's not like an AI system is limited to calculating or stuff like that. So
yeah, then we have 5G, and then you have quantum computing.
Yeah, their speed is limitless.
Yeah, the limitations become limitless, and then you have movies like Upload and the Singularity is Near. All of these blogs, Singularity Hub, that are talking about this future. Yeah, wouldn't it be great to have, like we have now, TED Talks in our bachelor education? Wouldn't it be great to have like Singularity Hub, Singularity University stuff in our university? Yeah,
I think it would be a wise idea.
In primary school, like what would you think of this happening in 10 years?
Yeah.
And then taking all the subjects that they are talking about at Singularity University.
That's the way it should work. Absolutely. Yeah. And then we can speed up and understand the future a little bit better already now.
Can you maybe highlight one of the projects that you've done with Trend Watching and then turned out into a product or into an innovation? Because I think Trend Watching is a starting point, and then you have to do something with it.
Yeah, okay, an interesting one. And by the way, I'm not pitching the TV broadcast tomorrow, but we got a robot, and it is called a UVC robot. So there's UVC light, and with this UVC light, you can sort of kill the coronavirus. And it's not new, because UVC is used in the meat industry for ages. Yeah. So the interesting thing was with this project, there was a robot. It's called Security Robot Sam, which was this size and something like this, with wheels, of course. And the first versions of this robot developed here in Delft could just wander around in a story building, for instance, and make a landscape of what is happening actually, and where the products were all stacked, and notice if there's heat detected, like a burglar is in the building, or a mouse or a rat is in the building, and it was detected with this driving security robot Sam. Very simple, but interesting made, and you didn't have to give the map, the radar map. It's making radar images of the story building, and then it's developed, and you don't give the map, but it's recognizing the area and creating its own map, so it's independently working then, and then gives signals to the security people and things like that. That's the start of this robot. But the technology of this robot, when it was made, we were thinking, hey, what can we do with this technology? Because it's like a tiny car which is driving around here. Now, in the end, the same technology, really the very same technology and same software, is used in the WePod little buses, which were, for instance, tested at the University of Wageningen and in Greece and in several places. And these autonomous cars, level 5 autonomous car, driving a car without any driver in the car. And that was interesting. And then, well, the corona problem appeared, and then we sit together and said, oh, okay, what could be done? And we thought about ventilation. Well, you know, all the topics in the news. And then someone said, okay, we do have this solution from the meat industry. Can't we sort of move this apparatus around, or what could be done with that? We got tubes, UVC tubes, to radiate and kill the coronavirus. And well, someone said, okay, we're going to try it with this security robot and build it together. And tomorrow, for the very first time, we got a live demo. So I hope it'll work in the proper way. And it's really great. We got a microbiologist and engineering people telling about how the principle works, and I think that is absolutely something which is based on AI as well, but also tested very thoroughly. For instance, at Schiphol Airport and other places, like what can you do with a technology like this? Because we can wander around with a cart, but can we make it a driving trash, called AnyTrash, by the way? And this driving trash asks people like, hey, you got something in your hand and I can see with my camera that it's empty. You want to get rid of it? And then you give it. And you can imagine if the first time this trash is talking to you, well, you're sort of shocked what's happening. And some people experience it also as a sort of security system. And like, don't leave your luggage in the hall somewhere without being there and stuff like that. So this is really an interesting project. And well, there's tons of other developments based on it. It's for, if you're watching, we're gonna not discuss it right now, but there's this LIA project also based on this system. And LIA is for equipment for elderly, helping them, but if they cannot keep their senses and stuff like that, they're helped with this apparatus. But it's based on the same principle, so it's quite interesting what's happening over there.
The technology in the gimbal, like the motor, I have it over here.
Absolute, yes.
They used it for.
You got one there? Oh, great.
I got one over here.
Yeah. I love the gimbal principle.
Yeah, like that little gimbal principle that's going to be on the same. It's just steering each other, and then it's making sure that people can actually eat when they have spasm.
Yeah.
They can use it, and they can.
That's
they can.
The idea.
And they're now using it for people with a handicap, like not being able to move anymore.
Yeah, and also for Parkinson and stuff like that. Yeah, it's absolutely great, and I think it's also in the past there was also a development first for the medical area or for military area and so on, and then it goes to consumers. And these days, it's most of the time the other way around. There's a consumer solution, and then someone who has to go into space or whatever say, hey, maybe for NASA or for someone else, it could be quite interesting to use this solution. So I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of things to further talk about, but I think we gave them a good inspirational shot here and a nice toolkit, Richard. So if you are ready, we are going to close down the session, the final session on the New Horizons stage. There's still one happening on the Work Life stage if you want to stick to the end, and the Global Main stage is still happening. Feel free to join these. Any last words, Richard, to the audience?
Well, it's quite simple. See you in the future, and don't forget to watch tomorrow. The entire day you can check out Campus Party. So there's a lot of material, and also everything can be watched on demand afterwards as well.
Yeah, that's great. So that's what is good about this. Almost 2,000 speakers helping us with trend watching.
Good luck with this. Information, yeah.
It's a mind-blown inspiration. Yeah. So thank Richard, and I hope you again in a real studio like the last time that we saw each other.
Absolutely.
And see each other on a trend watching or on a technology exhibition like Web Summit or all of these things that are now canceled. I hope they get back anywhere soon.
Yeah, I'm sure about that. It's going to happen. Okay. Yeah. Hey, thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.